Hello everyone. You're listening to Castbitten, a Dungeon Synth podcast, and I'm the host Trev. Today I've got the pleasure of speaking with Excellent Strategy Manuals Inc., also known as ESM, for the interview. They've recently published this 4-song release titled Pocket Zone, Dracula's House. And it seems like that was kind of inspired by this compilation of like a Halloween season compilation titled Wing of Roach by Gulick Records, which that one features a track by Excellent Strategy Manuals Inc., as well as a few other friends of the podcast. So it's something to check out. And then starting off the show, that track that you folks just heard at the top was Skeleton Hole, and that's from their release Tomb of Dorpus. So what's up, ESM? Thanks so much for hopping on.
Thank you so much for having me.
I guess in anything to preserve the mystique, go for it. But the first thing that comes to mind is what's going on with your name? Where did Excellent Strategy Manuals come from?
Well, I don't know. I had some names before that I won't mention.
Okay.
And I kind of really liked the sort of tabletop role playing kind of aspect of what I was working on. And so I came up with Excellent Strategy Manuals. It's extremely plain. It's and it's obviously sort of similar to Tactical Studies Rules, which is the original Dungeons and Dragons publisher, the Creatures of the Coast publisher. Yeah. So it's I get a little bit of that, magic. And also it's because I was making this music, and also I do publish role-playing games and role-playing ephemera on the side, and I use the same name, so it just works better that way.
Yeah, I guess that really does work out, and I like what you mean of it does sound plain, and throwing it incorporated to the end just ties it all together.
Yeah, if the IRS is listening, I am not incorporated.
Okay, very important to note. I guess kind of leaning right into that, I feel like your musical identity, or maybe your whole EMS Incorporated identity, it has this level of plain and dry kind of tongue-in-cheek humor. To me, that's how I see it. It's hard to describe, and the music itself doesn't feel like a joke. There's just this level of, I don't know, dry wackiness that adds to the overall idea. Am I off target here, or am I reading that right?
No, that's definitely something I play with for sure.
Okay, yeah. A little vague, but can you kind of talk about the role of humor in your music and your art? Because it feels very important and very intentional, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you'd have to talk to my therapist, but it's I certainly don't want to take myself too seriously. But also I like something that's kind of always drawn me to fantasy role playing and fantasy fiction in general, is that it's so blocky. Especially in the West, it's so everything is derivative of the same thing. It's a goblin is a goblin no matter how you look at it. So it's everything's a big collection of big blocky ideas, kind of stuffed together in a new way every time. And I really like that. I wanted to participate that. I wanted to play with the blocks. And it kind of compiles in goofy ways if you sort of play with them enough.
Yeah, I can completely see what you're saying, and you throw in, I guess, in your identity, you throw in this, you're saying, the blockiness, kind of putting random fantasy blocks together. You mentioned, speaking to me off the show earlier, maybe Mad Lib style, filling things out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're right. That really fits with the fantasy thing. You got goblins and orcs, and when I look at your albums and the titles of the tracks, it feels like things that uh I don't know, a lot of tropes, I guess, from that blockiness come alive in that.
Yeah, I for a while I had a whenever I was like kind of stuck or I was having like a bit of like a like a creative drought, I had like an Excel spreadsheet that just had a list of nouns and a list of like basically just like locations, and the Excel spreadsheet would just randomly generate
Oh my god.
like if so it was like rock, ghost, like sewer, and then like highway, chamber, house, and then so it's like it's just whenever I didn't have an idea, I let the machine tell me what was my idea, and it'd be like snake hole or like ghost highway. And I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I can work with that. Like I know what a snake hole sounds like. I know what a snake hole looks like. Like I know what
Right.
a rock I know what like a rock zone looks like, or like no matter how nebulous it is, it's like okay,
Yeah.
immediately like I've seen that before, or I can put that together.
When you make these, that is just super wild to hear, and such an outside of the box way to put it together. Do you aim for things that have like really imagery heavy, kind of visceral responses, like you say, what the snake hole is. I don't know. I hear highway. All of these things that kind of fit into that fantasy trope. It's really easy to quickly conjure up an image, and then I take that you just said, and then relate it to your song titles, and I don't know. I can really see it coming together. Is that something that, as you're setting up the first steps of these Excel files or the Mad Libs kind of sheets, is that the goal to get something like that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's like I feel like I know I with almost no work I know that you can figure out what I'm talking about. That's kind of what I'm looking for. It's like it's I don't have a song title is not very long, and you know I like to think that the actual recordings will conjure that, but like the song title certainly helps. Like, but
Right.
I don't have a lot of I don't if you don't have a lot of room, that's like it's a great way to like just kind of like add a tiny little dash on everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I like kind of like building up this language of like it's really easy to like figure out what this thing is because it's like so dumbed down.
Is this process maybe particularly visible in the Tomb of Dorpus write up? I notice they're even in all caps, these words that feel like maybe they could have come from some sort of fantasy trope generator.
Yeah, well, and like
Yeah.
the Tomb of Dorpus, it's I rewrote that so many times because I was like, this is
Really?
too long. Like this is too esoteric and like long. And it's like because like when I wrote the Tomb of Dorpus stuff, I was I was doing all of this like writing about the Tomb of Dorpus. It was so long, and I was running it as part of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I was DMing
Right.
to and like in a sneaky way to work through the stuff that I was recording.
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful.
and,
That's such a good combo.
but it yeah well and like it yeah it's like the perfect synergy because like I wanted to like I was like what is the Tomb of Dorpus, like where is it, like why is it important, like why isn't it important, but like I wrote so much stuff and I was like, you can't communicate this like you can't write like a half a book and then like try to communicate it to somebody that fast. So I just wrote it and then I'd be like, I can take all of this out, I can take all of this out, I can take all of this out. And then
Yeah.
you do just end up with like skeleton, like map, woods, and it just gets so small. And
Right.
I love that. I like it a lot more that way because it kind of it frees you up to kind of
Yeah.
explore a little bit more, and it means different things to different people because it's so the grains are so big.
Okay. And while we're on Tomb of Dorpus, I know the fans are clamoring for me to ask, is that Dorpus on the cover in the hole?
um Uh
Feel free to not say anything
yeah,
if it
I
spoils it.
guess I'd say no comment, but honestly, I'm not sure.
Wow. Wow,
It's because it's
that
like,
speaks volumes.
yeah. I mean,
Huh.
I'd like to think that it's complicated enough to where I don't know, but
That's great. I feel like that's a very valuable place to come from with art. It's beyond ambiguity if even you have set it up
it's
to not
definitely
be.
a mystery.
Right, right.
And I
I
think
like
I'm
that.
comfortable saying that.
I think a lot of people with media in general, they don't immediately see the value to like the mystery being baked in, uh, even if it's intentionally unsolvable. There's something that just really adds to the piece of media that way. It's like an inherent quality that flavors it.
I totally agree, and I learned that from Dungeon Synth because it's like using such small tools to build like such big spaces that
Right.
like you're listening to
Yeah.
this like you're listening through this Dungeon Synth. All you're going off of is like what you hear, and like you're lucky to get like the song title or the album art, and
Oh yeah.
then it's like you're on your merry way. And it's like the more information you have, like the less free you are.
Yeah,
Like,
for something so focused on world building, you're right. It's very minimal in what it allows. You really rely on little breadcrumbs from the song titles, things like that.
yeah, and I mean, there are so many people who are so good at it.
Right.
Um,
So, kind
yeah.
of getting into the structure, this was an interesting interview to plan for because uh, I feel like there's the proportions of what makes up your musical identity is so wonky. The music feels as important as the art and as important as the storytelling, and it all kind of wraps into this one wacky, interesting persona. So I've got all these angles to come from, but I want to talk about the music for a bit. Um, I guess first off, how much planning goes into it when you're actually making the tracks themselves? Is
Um, almost none.
okay.
I don't. I went from using like using DAWs and using like Ableton and like programs on my computer to put everything
Hmm.
together, and I just didn't have the patience for it. So I bought a 4-track recorder, 4-track cassette recorder, so I only would have 4 tracks.
Interesting.
And so you can only do so much planning when you only have 4 tracks. Um, and then that just was like a pill. I didn't like using it. So now I have 2 keyboards and 2 tape decks and a mixer, and I only record live. I I only record what I can play with 2 hands,
Wow.
and 2 tape decks. Um, so it's I basically I start with patching everything, like building like the two
Yeah.
sounds I want to have, and then maybe picking out. I have a bunch of like ambient tape stuff that I've made, or like like nature sound tapes that I've collected, and I have like a little bit of atmosphere, and then patched two patches that I can play both monophonic, so one finger at a time, and then I
Wow.
just play live. And if I don't like it, the guy just rewind and start over.
Just new new try.
Yeah.
Oh man. The monophonic part is interesting. Is that because you like that sound, or you like limiting yourself to the physical limitations of one finger per synth? Or what's going
It's
on?
I'm not a particularly talented musician. I'm an okay programmer, so I can
Okay.
um I I don't I had sample keyboards and digital modelers and stuff before. And like I've used MIDI, but like my capabilities aren't much more complicated than what I can accomplish with 2 fingers at a time. So,
Interesting.
or at
And
least like 2 hands.
right,
It
right.
really it was a pretty easy transition to make because um I I can't do
You
much
know,
with
it
a chord.
works.
I don't know very much about chords.
Yeah, that was the thing leading from that. I'm curious if you have any background with music theory.
Oh
Um,
no, no, no,
no,
no.
yeah, it seems
Yeah,
like
I learned. Yeah, I learned by ear everything.
okay. You're following your ear as you make these recordings.
Yeah, I like a little bit, like a tiny little bit of tiny little bit of theory. Like I like learned to play bass guitar when I was in like sixth grade from a
Okay,
teacher. That's probably like so I like understand how to like I understand how to make a scale and like to work in a
right.
scale.
I mean, yeah, even that's some level of foundation that will color your sound.
Yeah, and that's like that's mostly what I do is that I make a scale. I have to mark it out on my keyboard with tape, and then I just stay in that scale.
Okay. And
Uh,
and I might have missed earlier. Did you mention the two keyboards? They're both just MIDI controllers, or are either
yeah,
of
they're
them
both MIDI.
keys?
They're both MIDI controller. Well, I use an Arturia Micro Brute, which is like a monophonic analog
Okay.
synthesizer, and then I use a MIDI controller that controls another monophonic synthesizer.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes total sense. That's
Just two analog synths.
yeah. So
Both are
essentially, that's
monophonic.
what you're working with as far as where your sound palette's coming from,
Yeah,
and you go straight into those two recorders.
yeah. I record straight into like I have like a Tascam field recorder with like
Okay.
an audio in. So I just I the same way you would record a field recording basically. I have a
Okay.
mixer, so I can I can adjust levels. It can't do much more than that.
And
But
you mentioned recording field recordings. Your stuff always has these like noisy field recording samples in the background. Do you make those yourself?
honestly, I've tried to be like a good little field recorder for so long. I'm terrible at it. So I have tons of like falling asleep nature sound tapes, like haunted house sound tapes. I just like
Ooh.
any ambient tape I can find. I hold on to because it's like going to be useful at some point. Um,
When you say find, like not your own, you find field recordings.
yeah, like here I got one right now. It's called Dawn at Trout Lake. Was recorded
Incredible.
by North Sound Industries, which is like a recording company. I have a bunch from this company. It's made by this guy Bernie Cross. All credits to him. I should really start crediting him because I use a lot of these Wild Sanctuary
Oh,
adventure and sound
wow.
tapes. But yeah, it's because I mean they're really good field recordings, and it's just like I live in a city, so the most nature I can get without like really going out of my way is like to
The
like
park.
be in a park and everything's surrounded by beltways. So it's like
Wow.
there's no
I'm
way. I've tried so many times, but
I'm a little hung up on you saying that you're bad at field recordings.
it's just bad luck, basically.
Really, is it outside sounds interfering, or I don't really know anything about
I feel
active
like I
field
know a lot of
recording.
people who like they love to like collect like crazy, beautiful, natural world field recordings, and like
Right.
I take my little Tascam recorder and I like go to what I think is like a secluded place, and there's like airplanes or
Oh,
like I'm not a great live engineer. I'm good coming out of a mixer. I'm good with like
yeah.
levels. I can handle all that stuff, but I'm just a terrible
So
live engineer.
when you're recording these dudes live, do you have the field recordings playing as you do it, or do you add that later on?
I set it up how I like it before, and then I kind of play into the
Okay.
like the live, and it helps. It helps to write. Because you kind of which kind of natural environment
Right.
the sounds are kind of interacting with.
Yeah, I was gonna say because sometimes I feel like your live music kind of interacts with that background. I think something off of the new release, either Baying Hounds or Vampire's Feast. There's some birds cawing, and there's a couple moments where that's almost a third melody, or the cause will come in. and you'll play around with your melody, working around the cause. It's very lovely. It's very nice.
Yeah, I've listened to, that's a tape called, hold on one second.
Getting the real influences.
Not very exciting. It's called Spooky Sound Effects. And
Okay.
it's just like a haunted house tape, but one side has organ music on it, the other side doesn't. So I can only use one side of the tape because I can't play anything over the organ music because everything
Oh
sounds
yeah.
all banged up.
Oh my
But
gosh.
so I've listened to this one side of this one like haunted house music tape so many times. And I know there are parts in the tape where there's like too much wailing. I can't record over it. I
Too
can't use it.
much wailing.
But there's like a
Oh
beginning part that's got
no.
like a lot of like cats, and there's like some like crows. It's like it's
Great.
perfect.
Yeah. So so you started out playing a little bass, and now you make this weird, instrumental, uh, like straight from your mind, live stuff. Was there anything in between? Was there something before the dungeon synth, the experimental?
I um I kind of bobbed around a lot. I did a lot of like I had, I played with some other people doing like other ambient, like electronic ambient synthesizer projects. Um, but I just like I really liked like kind of the fantasy aspect, and then I was just listening to so much dungeon synth that I sort of it kind of devolved from like anything that
Oh, cool.
resembled like you know like new wave or like pop music into like extremely experimental ambient music
I
into
see.
dungeon synth.
Great.
It was like unavoidable.
I like that. So, you recently played at the Southeast Dungeon Scourge, doing like a live recording with the visual element. Hearing how you make your, I guess what you may call your studio releases, it seems like it's really the same process. You just threw in the visual element here and recorded it. Um,
Hmm.
can I don't know? Can you talk a little bit? I'm curious about that entire experience, and on the show, I talk about prospects of live dungeon synth a lot, and the various ways to do it. I think that the way you did it is really appealing to me in particular. Yeah, I think you mentioned the artists were kind of egging each other on to get more and more wacky and wild with their visual part of the show. What was that whole process like?
I mean, it was like Margadish. I never know if I'm saying that right.
I
I've
understand.
never
Yeah.
heard him say it. I've only ever read it, but he was like, I mean, outside of this, he's like a massive cheerleader, like a huge, just like a huge monolith in Dungeon Synth right now.
Uh huh.
And he wanted to put this show together. He got everybody organized, and so we were just like trading emails, and it was very obvious that like everybody was cooking up like something super hot. And this was starting with like there was like the first COVID Northeast Dungeon Siege.
Right.
That was like so many cool things that like seemingly got cooked up like on the fly because there just wasn't a lot of time.
Yeah. Very last minute. It's my understanding.
And like it was, and I was like, I remember when I first saw those, I was like, this is perfect because like I know that it would be so hard for me to do my stuff like actually live in a venue.
Right. Yeah,
Like it
that's
would
a
be
good
such a
point. It
pain.
really the genre really does lean into to making a show of it in a more digital way.
Yeah, and it's like it's gotta be like it's gotta be really like visual because like you get so much out of dungeon like listening to dungeon synth alone. And
Right.
so to be sitting in a room to like listen to like the fake sound of like gnome flutes, it's like that's a tough crowd. Like and everybody was just like topping each other like as like there was like more of these online like little fests and shows. Like there was so many people tried so much like wacky stuff. It was like so good. And then
So
I could tell everybody else was like working on something sick, and I was like, well, I really have
right.
to like put something together.
So if any listeners haven't checked this out, hop onto YouTube, search like Southeast Dungeon Scourge, Excellent Strategy Manuals Inc. You'll There can't be too many things that come up. It's so it's basically you as you described your process. You've got your two synthesizers recording into something, and you're in a very wild outfit, and then you have like a projector or something behind you, playing some sort of old school RPG game.
This was the hard, probably one of the harder parts of this whole process, which is that I contacted this person named Luxadream, who is a Twitch NetHack speedrunner. Um, NetHack is like an extremely like difficult, old, like like DOS era,
Yeah,
like dungeon crawling RPG. And it's a rogue like, so every time you play it, it's different. So you can't like memorize anything,
right.
and it's all ASCII art. All of the graphics in the game are generated by like characters on the screen.
Right, right. It made me think of Dwarf Fortress when I saw it.
Yes, it's Dwarf. I mean, Dwarf Fortress. The Dwarf Fortress tree runs back to NetHack for sure.
Okay, okay, lovely.
And this guy had recently broken a world like a speedrun record, and I think it took him like 40 minutes, and I knew that my set was supposed to be like around like 25 to 30. And I cold contacted him out of because I had heard that this guy had done it, and I wanted to find out. I was just like, maybe he'll answer, like if I send him an email or something, maybe
Yeah.
he'll answer it. And like he weirdly like contacted me at 3 a.m. I was like, can you beat it in that time? He was like, absolutely not, but I'll try. And basically he was like, I was probably gonna play NetHack for 25 minutes anyway. I'll just record it. So he gave it an honest try. Did not beat it in
Yeah,
25 minutes, but
but you got his best hustle.
yeah, he like, and I was like, I'm going to play at the same time as you, and he's like, okay, nice try, like,
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
but it's just like I was like, I gotta add more bits, I gotta add more stuff
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
like it's gotta have like I want to have like a ton going on because
Right. Um and then what about these I guess spoken word elements with some sort of head or a mask talking over it? Can you get into how you did that?
well, I to do it live, I knew that I was going to need time in between songs
Oh, yeah,
to
to change
repatch
patches.
to patch both the synths.
Interesting.
And so I happened to have been listening to this audiobook, this Fritz Lieber audiobook of the fantasy writer Fritz Lieber, who I'm a big fan of. Um, it's like one of his earliest like Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories. It's originally was published as Two Sought Adventure, and it's been republished as The Jewels in the Woods. And it's like my favorite. It's like my favorite fantasy writing ever. It's like
I see.
it's like it's hard to describe. I could talk forever about Fritz Lieber, but I had this audiobook anyway, so I was like, well, I'll just like find the like basically where I was at in the audiobook, and I was like, I'll play that in between.
Just let it ride.
And then
That's great.
a friend of mine was trying to get rid of this wolf mask, like on Instagram, and I was like,
There we
can I get
go.
it today? Like, so shouts out to K Fam. I used her wolf mask.
Wonderful. And what are the details on your outfit? How did that come about? I feel like
Um,
from looking at your page on Instagram, I think that hat appears in some of the drawings from a little while ago. I don't know if that's intentional.
I mean, I love that like pointy like
Yeah.
fantasy hat because it's like so ungrounded. It's like just so goofy. It's like it is like fantastic. Like I have never
Yeah.
seen somebody wearing that hat. I love that hat shape. It's like so silly. So I made one. It's not the first one I've made. I've made some bad ones in
Of
the
course.
past, but this one was the best one I've made so
Okay.
far. And like I've grown to like really like black metal and appreciate black metal, but that's not how I came to Dungeon Synth.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So
That's kind of the normal pipeline for many people.
yeah, and like I love the aesthetic, but it is I would be a poser if I tried to adapt it. So I kind of I like a softer sort of fantasy vibe, and so I found a really good like sweatsuit, and I made the hat.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, it's definitely like fantasy, but it's not like it's so soft because
Right.
I can't pretend to be hard. I don't think I'm
Yeah,
capable
yeah,
of that.
that fits. I feel like something kind of, unexpected there fits even better than if you'd come out in a robe with candles and everything. I think that it really adds up. Like, I think that was what I originally got in touch with you about, just to tell you how much I liked watching that, how cool it was.
I really appreciate it. I'm really glad that it's watchable because
Oh
that's like
yeah.
and that's the was my biggest like sort of apprehension going into it is like it's if not if you think the music is boring and then you're going to be totally screwed if the presentation is also boring.
No, it was the type of thing I was immediately texting it to friends saying this is nuts, come check it out. It's too cool. Um so earlier in this interview, to kind of pivot to something else, you talked about making a lot of tabletop games and tabletop games influencing things, and you DM them, and then earlier in the chat I was seeing you kind of talk about like kind of a Mad Libs type of style for making tabletop games. I kind of want to hear more about that. Can you, I don't know, however you want to approach it. What got you into that? What capacity do you do that now? How do you feel like it's connected to your other art?
Well, I it's kind of become my main thing outside of Dungeon Synth.
Okay.
Um, because it's like it's just like very fun and satisfying to me. It's like I um like I want to build spaces, like I want to build things, and Dungeon Synth is a way to do that for me because it's like I can kind of design what I want like a space to look like, and then I'm
Yeah.
kind of interpreting it and making it so that like you can kind of share that like atmosphere with somebody else. And I thought that that meant that I wanted to be like a filmmaker for a long time, and
Oh
I kind of
wow.
pursued that. Like I went to school intending to study that. I ended up in like a sculpture department, like a sculpture and extended media department.
Oh wow.
And then I realized I'm not quite crafty enough to build those things, to build the things I want to build, or like to to create the spaces I want to create. Or and also I was broke, so I
Yeah.
couldn't afford to build grand spaces to to like create an
Crafting
atmosphere or anything.
sculptures.
And so I started. I kind of got into comics. I was making comics for a while,
Oh,
um,
cool.
and and then I kind of it made a lot of sense because I love like like fantasy role playing. I was like playing a lot of like text adventures, like interactive fiction games when I was like a lot younger,
Yeah.
and then that kind of over a long period of time I turned into like tabletop role playing. And so I was like, well, this is like a perfect way to build a space because you're basically just building a couple tools for somebody to use to kind of create environments and like scenes like
Right, it's sort of the
using
opposite of those issues with sculpting and filmmaking, because it's all it's just all internal. It's all
yeah
mental for
and
the
yeah
most
and
part.
it's all I like doing it to kind of build my own spaces, but I love making tools for other people to do stuff.
Ah, yeah,
um
that's really nice.
and that's kind of where the Mad Libsy part of it comes from.
Yeah, those were so well written and interesting, and it is a cool approach. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I don't I like I'm because I'm working on this haunted house simulator right now. It's basically like a big collection of tables that you can use to build a haunted house, and so that's been what I've been working on recently. It certainly
Yeah.
won't be done in time for Halloween, so who knows what'll happen with it. But
do
yeah,
you um do you ever publish these for other people, or is this just for yourself and your own group?
I publish them. I actually me and my partner and a friend of ours run a risograph public publishing studio
Ooh,
here in
what
Richmond.
is that? I'm not cultured.
I don't I don't want to waste too much time on it, but it's basically like a kind of sort of arts oriented automated printing process. So it's
Oh
like
wow.
it's kind of between somewhere like halfway between screen printing and Xerox.
Okay.
Um, and it started as we wanted to print our own stuff, so we bought the equipment, and then now we do print our own stuff, but we also publish some other artists, and we also take work on commission.
Oh, that's too cool.
But yeah, so I've printed stuff through that, and I'll either like make it available on Instagram when I feel like I have something that's worth putting out there,
Right.
or we kind of tour around doing like comic fairs, art book fairs, whatever we can get into.
So kind of leaning into that, talking about your artwork, your visual art seems like a huge part of the Excellent Strategy Manuals Inc. identity. Um, I you were talking about this earlier, and uh, it's so interesting to me. For the listeners, can you maybe just start out by explaining what your art making setup looks like right now
Um,
for like your cover art, your digital art?
so I only use MS Paint and I only use Microsoft Word
Right, that's
for
incredible.
and it's a gimmick at this point. It started because I just grew to hate Photoshop and I grew to hate Illustrator. I don't like those like Adobe Suite
Yeah,
editing programs. There's just so much stuff in them. Like I know that I'm like not using them efficiently, so I kind of just grew really tired of them. And if you can't afford those programs, MS Paint is almost always either free or available in some open source form.
yeah.
And when I started out, I didn't have a tablet or a mouse. I had a laptop, so I had a trackpad, and so I use a trackpad
And
in
you
MS
still to
Paint.
this day use the
Yeah, I bought a
trackpad.
desktop
Oh
and
my
I bought a
gosh.
trackpad for it because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to do anything if I didn't have a
What a
trackpad.
masochist.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. But I get I'm not like a very good draftsman. I'm not like a I don't draw from life very well, but I can use MS Paint's big blocky shapes, and then I can kind of whittle back from that.
Right,
Like
right.
I like those polygon shapes that MS Paint can make.
Yeah, I feel like it gives you a very unique stylized look by just sticking to the tools that are offered there.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect for me because I certainly couldn't draw a circle by hand, and
Yeah, I
so
like that you lean into the shapes there. I think that the best example of the mix of kind of the pre-made stuff that MS Paint has to offer with the freehand stuff is your demos. I think it's your second release, the Tales from the Old Grumpus book.
oh
It's
yeah,
the cobwebs are all made at least originally with what look like the stock lines in the book, but then you
yes,
kind of go in and I think earlier today Graktraz said something like a craftsman working chiseling their art or something. You go back and change those pre-drawn shapes and give them a little life. But then you also
yeah.
have who I
Sometimes
imagine
I'll
is
like make a
Grumpus
square
himself.
and I'll be like, that's too square, so I'll just kind of like
Just
erase
change it.
part of one line and
Yeah.
draw it by hand just to see what it looks like.
And then you have this lumpy freehand drawing in the middle that's it they complement each other very well. It's an interesting look.
Yeah, there's got to be a more efficient way to make to do that or to make that. But I'm just at this point, it's just bad habits, um, and it's just like comfort. I know I can like click it open and start working, and I know all of its 5 like tools and like
Right.
its limited palette of colors.
But I'm seeing some artistic continuity here between the MS Paint and then your recording live straight into the program with your 2 mono synths. You see what I'm saying? There's definitely, um, there's a connection there
Yeah,
conceptually.
it's like the least amount of time to get going.
Right, right. Just it feels because there's almost a stream of consciousness element to a lot of your stuff, and I feel like this setup really facilitates that.
Yeah, I mean, when you asked about planning earlier, like I like not knowing what it's gonna, not having a great idea of what it's gonna look like or what it's gonna sound like when I'm done.
I see.
Um,
Yeah, that's fun.
and then all you sacrifice when you work like that is that you might finish making something and then just be like, well, I have to scrap it and start over. You know, it's like I have my tools, I have everything I need to make something, and then I will make it, and then I have to decide whether or not this is like the good version of this, or if doing it 1 or 2 more times is gonna yield a
Right.
better result.
And what is your cull rate? Do you feel like the majority of stuff that you make you stick with or you cut,
Oh,
or is
no,
it
no, no,
about
no, no.
50-50?
Yeah,
No.
absolutely not.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I delete a lot of stuff, and you know, sometimes I'll put something away and come back to it later, and maybe I'll like it better later, or it'll be
Yeah.
like useful later.
You
But
never edit it though, you just maybe change your mind.
yeah, I'm just tired. I deleted Ableton off of my computer. I just use Audacity to upload the files and to maybe adjust the levels.
I
Um,
see.
I hate mastering, so it's like, I mean, which is probably apparent. I probably shouldn't say that because it's going to be like very clear if somebody heard something that I recorded that I don't like mastering.
The Dungeons and community is pretty forgiving when it comes to mastering
Yeah,
of
I love
things.
that.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty raw.
Nobody's ever been a dick to me about how like levels on anything.
Right, right. I appreciate that about the type of people that are into it. One thing I'm curious about, to kind of wrap up the art angle, are there are there visual artists that are influential on you? Because I don't really know anything that looks like this, so I'm just curious if there's something that you kind of pull from or get started from, or is pretty much just the straight from the mind of ESM.
I mean, it kind of took me a while to come to this conclusion, but it's like the biggest visual influence I have is like pixel art in video games,
Okay,
in
okay,
particular in like RPGs. Like I've played, like I love playing old RPGs, like old text games, or old like dungeon crawling games. So there's like a
yeah.
ton of art in those that has been just that I just kind of absorbed and got in, like really into, like all the Dragon Quest games, and
Okay, that's fun.
like um there's like the like gold box Pool of Radiance, like Dungeons and Dragons computer games that I got
Okay.
really into.
Do you
There's
think
this
those are the
one
main sources?
there's this one learning company game which they made like Roger or Reader Rabbit, which was, I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I play the shit out of those games. But
Very
they made this game
fundamental.
called Treasure Mountain. A lot of people remember it. Some people have like no frame of reference for it, but
Take a quick Google.
that's like a massive. I'm pretty sure it's just called Treasure Mountain, and it had like a learning how to type thing to it.
Oh, I didn't get exposed to this at all, but I
Yeah,
totally
it's
know
a
the
real, like,
genre that
your
you
school had like a physical copy of it or not,
mean.
but
Right, right.
and I
Yeah, those are
remember there's
absolute
like,
highlights.
I don't know who's familiar with the movie Big, and I don't know how many big heads there are out there anymore, but
You
in
gotta
the
have
movie
a
Big,
couple.
he's playing a text-based game at the very beginning
Oh,
that,
you're right.
and it's
Yeah.
fake. It's not a real game. They made it
What?
for the movie Big.
What?
Um but I think about that like all the time. Like it's like big blocky colors. I love the way that looks, and that's like kind of, and then I play a lot of tabletop games, and like I've gone through like sort of the annals of like fantasy artists in tabletop games. Errol Otis is like a huge one. I love Errol Otis.
Okay.
He did a lot of paintings for TSR and Dungeons and Dragons. But like the biggest, it's like there's no point in faking it anymore. Like that's what I loved looking at, and like it's still what I love looking at. Like I love like pixel art and like
So it
video game
feels like
art.
your pool of influences isn't really separated by like the visual art, the musical art. It's all kind of coming from the same places. It seems very like it affected you early on and it stuck with you. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I it's like that was my introduction to to that was like where I like fell in love with fantasy fiction. Basically, is
Right.
through video games. I think that that's a pretty valid thing at this point. I think that it's possibly maybe even overtaken like the literature aspect.
Yeah.
Um, it's like so many people are exposed to those like that, like those symbols, that those archetypes through like at least like game playing or like role playing, if not specifically through video games.
Right. I can totally see that. And I guess aside from Big, are there any TV and movie influences? Those you haven't talked about them as much, and it seems a little less interactive. So maybe that's not so much your thing.
I mean, I was expecting like a to get this question, so I
Oh,
thought about
really?
it, and it's like I like before I got into video games, I like definitely was like really into like fantasy in general, but I realized that like I was like into some like really soft stuff. Like I read Lord of the Rings, so like get that out of the way. I did read it.
Right.
I don't think it's a massive influence on me, other
Uh
than the
huh.
fact that I did read it and it's also
Still get to
everywhere.
keep your DS cred though. You read it.
Yeah,
Very
for
important.
sure. But like I was I always preferred The Hobbit, which is like the soft version
Oh,
of
interesting.
Lord of the Rings. And then
Yeah.
I was thinking about how like I loved the Rankin Bass like animated Hobbit movie. That was like a
Oh,
huge,
yeah.
and they also because they also made The Last Unicorn, which I also like I was really into.
Okay.
And so it's like the edge is just like so off on those. It's like so it's just like beautiful landscapes and like stuff like that. I love this might be a stretch. I feel like I'm constantly putting my DS credibility on the line, but I loved Watership Down, which is in a
Oh
way
no,
like a
I can
fantasy
see it.
story.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of magic, and I mean it's really fucking violent,
Right. Yeah.
but it's but like I like
It's
there's just
too
like
violent for the age group it's made for.
oh
Honestly.
yeah, it's like you and like you cannot tell a kid that they can't watch a cartoon.
Right. Right.
I'm
That's
sure that's how
true.
I watched it. But
Yeah.
it's like so bloody. But it's
Yeah.
I like it's just like big beautiful landscapes. It's really simple.
Interesting. And it's funny we haven't touched on this at all. What about the Dungeons and musical influences? I know you're more of the uh, I don't know, soundscapey or kind of stripped back thing. Do you like to listen to that, or do you get into the like busier, more melodic stuff?
I really like appreciate atmosphere. There's definitely like really like melodic like sort of decadent dungeon synth that I really like Saragost, who was part
Hmm.
of Dungeon Scourge. Like I love that guy. I love that guy's work. It's like so powerful.
Okay.
But I do really like sort of more washy, like Willotree, who I know you had on the show.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a
Last
huge fan.
episode. I
Um,
can see that blending in for sure.
yeah, I there's also like there's this DS artist Leander, who is like another dungeon synth artist from the South,
Oh, how
who
do you spell
makes like
that?
Leander, I think.
Okay, nice for
Um,
the listeners out
it's
there.
like real, like really like hazy, like memory
Right.
ambient. Um, but yeah, it's like I'm excited to hear what anybody has to try as far as dungeon synth goes. I'm very rarely like immediately put off. Like I love to hear new ideas, people trying new stuff, or
Yeah,
like
it's
in
the
like
type
any
of
kind of stuff.
thing that I feel like I'm always going to get something out of listening to a release in it.
Yeah,
Even if it's
I
just a
very
cool
rarely am
tune.
like this is completely unmemorable. I usually
Yeah.
feel like I pick something up.
Oh yeah, that's so nice. All right, well, I hit the bottom of my notes. I feel like we kind of got every angle to this wild thing you got going on. Was there anything that you were hoping to cover while you're on here?
No, I hate talking about myself.
Oh
Uh,
no, you've
it's
been
nice to
so
be.
good.
It's
I
really
don't
nice to be
believe
asked.
it.
I appreciate being asked for sure.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I guess in that case, just do you want to plug anything? I think your excellent strategy, right, on Bandcamp.
I think I'm excellent. I think I finally got excellent. It's got to be excellent strategy. I don't know what is it.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it is
.bandcamp.com.
excellent strategy,
Okay,
and
and,
then I'm
and
excellent strategy manuals on Instagram.
okay, wonderful. Anything else?
Well, I want to plug the Gulick rapper Gulick or Gulick again. Nobody's ever told me. I've only ever read it.
I love that
I want
about
to
Dungeon
plug their
Synth.
Halloween tape because it's sick, and I am on it,
Yeah,
so I'm
and
allowed to
as I
do that.
mentioned, a lot of friends of the show. A couple people. Colin from Elminster has something on it. I think Willow T has something on it.
I was so excited when they said something about it, and I was really worried it wasn't gonna happen.
Oh,
And
really?
I was just in the mood anyway, so I was like making a lot of stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I know we talked about this before, but like, I do have some like Halloweeny stuff."
Oh,
And they were like,
wonderful.
"Oh, thank God!" So I thought I was like, I got like a thank God, so I was like, "Did this
Yeah.
fall apart?" And then I was like, "Oh no, it's like all my favorite Dungeon Synth artists made something for this." Like,
Nice.
I was very flattered to be part of it, and it's really sick.
So that
Um,
track from the compilation, did you make that in the same sitting as when you made Dracula's House?
yes, kind of.
Oh, okay.
I actually intended to put that on mine. I asked them if that would be okay, and they said yes. And then I was like, this feels better alone in the compilation with their stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So I ended up leaving it off. It kind of didn't. It's a different spooky,
A different
I would say.
spooky. Nice. So for the fans, that's gulikrecords.bandcamp.com, Gulik
Yeah,
records.
and I don't. I mean, I did just put something up. If you care to listen or download.
Yeah, that Pocket Zone, it's super cool. Check that dude out. It's
Yeah,
fun.
it's Halloween fun for sure.
Yes, yeah.
At least. And then I have some stuff I don't quite feel comfortable talking about quite yet. Very
Okay.
in the very near future, I
Okay.
think.
Maybe if people
So
follow you
watch the
on Bandcamp or
space.
Instagram, they can
Yes.
just keep checking it out.
Yeah. Watch the space, I think.
Awesome.
But I don't think I can say what they are yet. But
Okay,
yeah,
I like it. That to end on a note of mystery is very fitting for what you've got going on. All right, well, thanks a ton for coming on. This was super, super fun. It was one of the more unique interviews, I think. Had a lovely time.
yeah, thank you for having me for sure.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
Okay, everyone. That was Excellent Strategy Manuals Incorporated. Oh my god, truly one of the most fun and interesting interviews I've had on here. That dude is just something else. I loved it. I loved hearing about their wild approaches to making art, and how all these antics kind of pool together to make this project that's really special, really captivatingly unique. I'm so pleased with learning the ins and outs of it. Be sure to check them out at excellentstrategy.bandcamp.com, as well as excellent_strategy_manuals_ on Instagram. You can listen to their new release, Pocket Zone Dracula's House, online, and you can also snag that compilation we mentioned, the Halloween one that they were a part of through Gulick Records, and that's at gulickrecords.bandcamp.com. Check out their stuff. In Trev news, you can always keep up with me and with my work at cursebitten.bandcamp.com or by checking out cursebitten_ on Instagram. In case you missed it, we've got Castbitten t-shirts out with the cool bird from the cover art for Castbitten. They're wonderful. If you want to grab one, you can get it at cursebitten.bandcamp.com/merch, or just send me a message through my contact form through Instagram, something like that. We'll figure it out. Shirts are really fun. I've still got shirts for almost every size. One of them sold out. No more extra larges. We've got all the others, so go check them out. Also, another little thing, I recently started this Discord server with my friend Tristan from Elavalon. You'll know him from Castbitten episode 5. I don't know, we just started this nice, friendly place to hang out, talk a little synth, make some friends. If you want to join that, you can grab the link. It's on my Bandcamp, it's on my Instagram. I don't know, could be fun if you hop on. If you dig enough, you may just find a demo for a new Cursebitten song. Maybe that's some incentive to join. Likely not, but please join anyway. Alright, I think that's all I've got. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks again to ESM for stopping by and chatting. Take care, everyone. Get out of here.